Um, Hi, Kelly. Thank you for agreeing to do a testimonial. It's taken us a while to to get here, but here we are, even though we do speak pretty often anyway.
Hi, Victor.
All right. So yeah, so I'm one of the things that is really cool about doing a testimonial with you is you are the one of the few people that was not able to use milk kefir to help you recover. And so I think it's really good for people to see some of the exceptions um, to the not to the rule. I mean, there's no rule, right? So that's the
It's
thing.
workarounds.
Workarounds, right? We're exactly workarounds. And as you know, I really hesitated to define any specific protocol because everybody is unique. There's workarounds for everything. But I do appreciate that, people do need some kind of template or starting point,
Mhm.
right? And so I guess, so with you, is it okay for you to share with us, like, what was your issue or what was your state of health or unwellness um, before you started to improve?
Sure. Well, I did receive a diagnosis of ulcerative
Mhm.
colitis.
Okay.
And then with that came a lot of other issues. I noticed that my liver wasn't doing very well, my adrenals, um, and um, also there were like emotional things that I had to deal with that I didn't realize were probably the main cause.
Mm.
I had a really good diet before I had the gut issues, and um, when I received that diagnosis, I almost felt like my body had betrayed me because I, you know, I I raise my own meat for chicken. I have eggs that I get from my backyard. I garden. I forage. Even medicines, like the way would treat my family is I would take the herbal root and that sort of thing. So when
Mm.
I got a diagnosis of IBD, I was kind of like, what? I don't get it. Like me, that doesn't make sense.
Wow, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. That
yeah.
should be impossible.
Right. I mean, and that's
Yeah.
not to say I had a perfect diet because I've learned a lot from you since then about making sure that I get in the right nutrients and vitamins. And I wasn't necessarily doing that. And then I admittedly was eating, sugary things. It was organic
Right.
sugar, but it was still
Oh,
sugar,
yeah,
you
right.
know?
Too
So,
much sugar, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I've learned a lot since then
Okay.
about diet too. But yeah, it was pretty rough for a long time until I figured out how to take care of myself, and I refused medicines right from the beginning. So
Okay.
I never was on prednisone or did any biologics or anything because that just wasn't, it's not how I roll. So
Right.
so I came
Nice.
straight to you.
Oh, cool. Well,
Yeah.
that really, it does make it even more remarkable. I think that's a really fantastic point to highlight, that you pretty much you were doing everything perfectly. I mean, even okay, sugar imbalance, I mean, that's kind of one of the pitfalls of our modern world. But really, your food was super healthy. And it's interesting. And I would say probably right on spot. You were saying maybe it really was the emotional component, the stress, right? So it's interesting because generally speaking, our world does acknowledge that stress is like the number one killer. And yet, when it actually comes to, well, what do we do about that? Right? There are few solutions that are given to us, unfortunately, drugs and stuff, but that's not removing the root cause. So that's really interesting. So before we jump into that, how you actually got to that root cause, we'll save that for a little mystery, right? About how you removed those emotional stressors. There was another interesting thing, though. You were aware that you were also physically toxic, not
Mhm.
just emotionally or psychologically or whatever, right? Because you were getting tested, right? So this
Yeah.
is a right. So that's a very fortunate benefit for you, right? You were able to test yourself. Not everyone is, but you were able to see that your body was harboring um, various. So what kind of toxins? Actually, I'll let you speak.
I had some
Or,
heavy metals, and then I think it was mostly heavy metals, and I still do. I'm working through some layers. There was some mold toxicity.
oh,
I mean, I think most people have these imbalances in their
yes.
body. Um, Parasites wasn't a big issue for me, um, and I had candida too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, everyone
Gotcha.
has it, but I had
Right.
it was
An
an
imbalance.
imbalance. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Gotcha.
And I think a part of one of the things that I love about what you say is you really kind of boil things down so that they're really easy to understand and simple. And you really, when you mentioned that like most illness comes from either being malnourished or toxic, it just
Mhm.
kind of made it easier to like figure out, well, like, okay, so I've figured out the nourishment piece. Now I can
Mhm.
focus on the toxins. And I hit those toxins hard. I really, that was kind of like one of my, I tried to reduce toxins like it was my job for a while. And
Nice.
yeah, and I think it really paid off because that's when
Awesome.
I really started noticing changes. So,
So outside of the tools that you used, so we'll
mhm.
talk about those, but did you like discover any hidden sources of toxins?
Um,
Like were there certain foods or anything that maybe were betraying you along the way, or anything in your environment, or
no, I mean, I clean like my
you
house
were
is
already
clean with
clean?
baking soda and vinegar. Like I just, it was something that I was always, I mean, I shouldn't say always, since like my
Mhm.
20s, was very cognizant about. So,
Okay.
and like deeply cared about, which is why, you know.
Right, right. Yeah, so again, here too, right? A point that is really good for people, like even if we are apparently living a perfect life, the toxins are still getting to us. I mean, right, they're finding it in monkeys in the rainforest,
Mhm.
right, have heavy metal toxins in their stool.
Yeah.
So you right, so we've got to do something else about it, right? So even though, and it is sad because you mentioned earlier you felt like your body betrayed you, or right, but you were doing everything right. It's just the world is so toxic. So all right, so then one really cool thing we mentioned that fortunately for you, you were able to get regular testing, so you were able to monitor the toxins. And then, so you saw when you implemented the PBX zeolite, and I don't remember off the top of my head. Did you implement like everything at once, like
No,
PBX and clay? It was
I
just
actually started out with just the PBX, and that was,
okay.
yeah, and after 1 week of testing, my practitioner said, "Whoa, what happened to your heavy metals?" So she's
Right.
like, they dropped. So, so yeah, I brought props.
Oh, awesome, awesome,
I
awesome.
love
Okay,
my
very good.
PBX. And
Yeah.
I love that this is something that I can do forever and know
Yes.
that, and give my family forever and know that if even um, on the days that like I'm really busy, this is just a quick spray and I know I'm doing something to help reduce the
Right.
toxins. So, that's been helpful. If I don't have time for like some red light therapy, I can just
Mm,
take my
that,
zeolite.
that's another nice thing to talk about too. Yeah, I love the PBX. I mean, the that idea, the simplicity of it, the convenience of it is such a powerful factor, because I know there are so many things, like even clay, right? So like I love clay. I mean, it's not as potent as PBX, but shouldn't be compared. I mean, they work together great, but it's like more difficult for me to get people to use clay and use it properly, because, well, they got to prepare it, they've got to make sure they hydrate it, you've got to powder, you've got to mix it with water. So I mean, I know it's a little thing. It's still very easy, but so many people fall off of the routine because of that. And as you mentioned, it's just so easy to grab the bottle and spray.
Right.
And we don't have to worry about being in a religious routine with it. We know it's helping us.
Mhm.
And it's awesome, like I've mentioned this before, because I have other clients like you. The one other I can mention publicly, because he's my brother and he's mentioned it, same thing, right? He was being tested. He did the PBX. His practitioner did not know that he was using the PBX, and just suddenly it was like, whoa, your heavy metals just took a dive.
Mhm.
Awesome. And everybody that tests sees this, right? If they test before and after, the heavy metals are coming out. The PBX is unbelievable.
Mhm.
It's really amazing. And there's another really important thing that you mentioned. You talked about, like, you're still removing layers of toxicity. And I think people don't appreciate or understand how toxic we are. Even when eating clean and living a clean lifestyle, it still takes a long time to get the toxins out. And I can never emphasize this enough to people. I mean, I try, but there are no clear answers, right? So we just need to adopt these things into our life. And you've just been doing an amazing job of just adopting these things into your life and slowly cleaning up, right? So you've done a lot of things. I don't want to get stuck on the PBX because we
Yeah,
could
I
talk.
also do PB now though. It
Okay.
was just that 1 week when I got it tested, all I was doing
Okay.
was PB, and even the PBX, and just the PBX made that big of a difference. But I also love this. And I think this helps
Awesome.
get rid of my histamines, actually.
Oh, nice.
Not get
Okay.
rid of them, but it's
Reduce.
reduce them, and they're a lot better
Okay.
because I don't know if you remember, but when I started taking this, I wrote you a message because I got a rash on my chin.
Yes.
It lasted like 15 minutes and it was itchy and red bumps, and they went away. And I think that was histamines coming out. So
Wow.
that's why I think this
Wow.
was really.
Yeah, that's a very interesting thing too. And of course, too, you've seen comments from many other clients about how some of them felt, especially there were a couple of people or a few people with SIBO, for example, that felt the impact from the PB zeolite, right? So it's very interesting, how the two things can work quite differently, even though it's the same exact zeolite, just at different sizes. So the PB focuses on the gut, the digestive tract that stays in there.
Mm.
And so that's kind of cool. So you're fortunate in that the things that you implemented revealed themselves to you quite obviously, because many cases things are invisible, what's happening, just like the heavy metals were invisible. You didn't If you weren't testing, you wouldn't even realize that you were toxic, right? um and so it's interesting. I mean, you make for a great testimonial for this reason too, because you've had these very tangible experiences with PBX, and as you said, now with PB also, right?
Yeah.
And some other things. I don't know. Should we shift gears? Maybe should we mention the Beck protocol stuff?
Sure.
Or yeah.
Yeah.
So right, because then you then as you continue to improve, right, you were still looking to add more tools. And again, I always tell people, the more tools you add, the not that there's a race. It's not a race, but the faster and usually the more gentle we can heal, because we've got more things assisting the body, right?
Mhm.
And so I think you've done a good job about really, empowering yourself more and more, taking your time, right, and just bringing in different tools. And so electric medicine is not something I talk about a lot, even though it's when it does come up, I always tell people, look, the Beck protocol is like the number one thing in my opinion, period.
Could
Uh,
benefit everyone. Yeah.
yes, it's amazing. And so you did start. You started with was it just a pulsar first?
No,
With
I got the whole
You
kit.
got the whole kit, right? It
I
was the
did.
whole
And
kit.
actually,
Yeah.
the reason I bought it, and I won't go into details about this because of privacy, but I got it because another family member was having a health crisis.
Mm-hmm.
You had suggested it to me for them. And it made all the difference. And they were healed within 2 months of something that I know people spend their whole lives feeling completely debilitated. So
Yes.
I'll be forever grateful to you for that.
Oh
Um,
no, my pleasure. I
yeah.
mean, Dr. Beck really deserves all the credit for his amazing efforts in putting all that information together for people. And yeah, but I'm grateful to you for sharing this story because, most people, they can't speak up, or of course, especially now, like right now in 2021, medical freedom and medical privacy is a big thing. And I've never been a big fan of testimonials for this reason, but I realized that, yeah, I need to really start doing testimonials because it's not good for me to just not do that, right? Because I know, so your experiences, I know by us putting it out there, it's going to benefit a lot of people. So again, yeah, I'm glad you're able to share.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad, yeah. So the Beck protocol, using the magnetic pulsar and blood electrification, you already had the colloidal silver going,
Yeah.
right? And the ozonator, right, for ozonated
Yes.
water,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so
Yeah.
very good. And so again, you were able to witness amazing things, the benefits from
Yeah.
that protocol.
Yeah, I didn't do the full protocol. I basically did it alongside my family member, kind of like
Mhm.
in a show of solidarity. and
Oh, nice.
and because I knew it was good for me too. So
Mhm.
um so I did it, but the focus was on that family member. So I
Right.
did all of the components of it, but I didn't, necessarily do the blood electrification every day for 6 weeks, that sort of thing. Um but I still use them every
Mm,
now and then. Like if I have a neck pain, I'll get out my magnetic pulsar, which I have.
nice. Oh, nice. You're prepared.
I am.
Good.
So
Awesome.
I just put it on my neck and I'll watch a show or something, and I love how it feels. So
Awesome. Yeah, and
yeah.
it is very convenient. And the idea of sharing. I mean, it's the same thing, like many people in my family have used the magnetic pulsar. Yeah, it's such a good device.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and again, and I really appreciate SOTA Instruments is my favorite company, and they originally worked with Dr. Beck. So I feel very comfortable in recommending their products, even though we can make those devices, and as we know, there are people even in the Vitagenics group, we have someone that's made his own device, which is awesome. But so this is, in fact, one thing I'll mention related to that. So, like you've done an amazing job, and what I always emphasize is the quality of the food we eat, the quality of all the products we use is like the most important thing. And I mean the true quality, not being confused by labels, and marketing and stuff like that. We really got to make sure that our food is grown in nutrient dense soil and truly organic, not just USDA certified doesn't mean so much,
Mhm.
right? And it's the same thing when we look at devices like that, right? It's the quality and really the science behind it. And it really makes a big difference, and it's such a great investment. So you and your family will be using those devices for at least 10 years. I mean, from my own experience, we've got devices for 10, 15 years,
Mhm.
right?
I
That are
just feel
still,
safer. I feel safer having them.
yes.
There's less fear around a lot of illness just because I know that I have these as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, right. That's right. That's again one of the goals, just removing the fear, which maybe this is a really good segue into emotions, right? And so this is a real struggle, I think, for many people trying to remove the fear and many other emotions. And then this was for me, I really hesitated to bring these topics out into the public, just as 10 years ago, I was afraid to talk about colloidal silver and electric medicine. So I kept those things inside. It was okay for me to talk about Chinese herbs or shamanism, even Ayurvedic medicine, general nutrition, but I was a little bit nervous about bringing out other things. And now recently I started to bring out these more intangible things, spiritual beliefs and beliefs in general, and this idea of trapped emotions and the emotion code, muscle testing, etc. And once again, you were one of those people that jumped in there and you were not afraid to start to implement it. And again, and you had amazing success with the emotion code and the body code, right? The two go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So, right. So I see, I don't now, and this is maybe a touch more personal too. So of course, you don't have to share a lot of details. You can keep it as vague or as detailed as you wish. Um, but tell us a little bit about your experience with the emotion code.
Okay, sure. So I had heard about the emotion code before you brought it up. Like I'd seen the book a few places and
Mm.
it popped up online. Um, and then when you mentioned it, it was like, it like started smacking me in the face. I'm like, okay, fine. I'll look
Awesome.
into this.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I found a local, and this was before you were really practicing, like you were still learning about it.
Oh, right. I wasn't
Yeah,
certified until
yeah,
recently. Yeah.
right, yeah. So I found a local practitioner who did the body code and the emotion code, and that that was probably one of the biggest turning points for me because it's when I stopped bleeding, and it had been about a year of bleeding, and
Wow.
yeah, and it was amazing.
That
So
is awesome.
yeah, and I've since started learning. I haven't tried to get certified. I might someday, but I'm learning how to do it on myself, and I've been doing it for my family and had some really cool experiences with that too, where
Very nice.
other people have been really excited about what I've been able to do for them. So it's not that hard to learn, which is really awesome.
Right, right. I mean, and that's another reason why I love it because I want to empower people, right? And so that the emotion code has this amazing potential to open people's eyes to the general idea of muscle testing
Mhm.
and realize that no, this is not magic that is reserved for only a few gifted people,
Right.
right? It's for everybody.
And then the thing with muscle testing too, now that I've learned how to do that through the emotion code, I can use it for foods to see if something
Yes.
might be a good fit. Or I use it when I take my BOO because it took a while to figure out the right dosage for me. So I muscle test to find how much I should be taking
Oh
during
my God,
the day.
that's
So
awesome.
yeah,
That's awesome.
really
I
cool.
know there's I know I can mention her name also. Paulina does that too.
Mhm,
She muscle tests for like dosages of boo and even other things.
mhm.
So that's a yeah, again that's an amazing tool, right? Just the muscle testing itself, and then the way the emotion code implements it is amazing. And so again, not to be mixing my own story in with yours, it's supposed to be your testimonial, but I've always admired and appreciated energy healing my whole life, but I never took it on myself to do it. I
Mhm.
never became that kind of a healer. It always seemed like, well, no, I don't have that gift. And it's really, I gotta thank Dr. Bradley, who's the discovered or created the emotion code, um, or I should say Dr. Bradley Nelson. Um, he, I mean, what he gave us and the way he presented it and everything, it was just, I was like, wow, yeah, oh my gosh. And so that's why I decided that instead of me just, because anybody can do it. Like, so you get the book and you can learn how to do it and you take your time. But I decided that I should really get certified because that's going to enable me to just, more people will try it if I am certified. And of course, I became better at it because of that, going through the certification. I should also give a shout out to my brother Frankie because he's actually the one that introduced me to it. And like you mentioned, you had seen it before, right? And because it's been around for over 10 years. And I was like, why have I like never seen it? But I realized even when my brother showed it to me, I was like, yeah, there's like 1,000 things like this. Sounds cool. And I told my brother, I was like, look, yeah, listen, if that feels right to you, awesome, dive into it, because it's for thousands of years, there have been all different kinds of things similar to this, right? Where it's connected to all the other kinds of energy healing. It's just a very specific technique. But my brother was quite passionate about it. He didn't actually go in and learn to do it himself, but it really clicked with him. And so it motivated me to dig in more. And then I was like, oh, wow, wait, this is for me. Okay, this is going to be my gateway that I will use as a gateway for others, to bring them into muscle testing and uh, to give them a tool to remove trapped emotions,
Mhm.
which are toxins, right? It's an intangible toxin. So, and it's so nice to actually see people like yourself who saw the impact. So that's awesome. I mean, I'm so excited. I'm so glad to hear that you had like those kinds of results from it, and that you've adopted it for yourself.
Mhm.
So anyway, I'm running on too much myself here, but yeah, thank you for sharing that. Because again, I know when we talk about like trapped emotions and stuff, even less people are going to share about that because it might feel more personal, you know, or more woo-woo, because there's people that hesitate because of that. But no, I mean, I can say it's hardcore science for me. I can tie it to the physics. So
Mhm.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, great, awesome. So wow, so you've implemented so many of the things that we talk about, right? Of course, you were already on board with like, proper diet, or what we might say like a Western price style of living, actually, so that was all good. Um,
But I wasn't having liver or like nutrient dense, so
okay.
I was eating what most people would consider clean food. I was making my own
Mm-hmm.
food. I was growing a lot of my own food, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really being as careful as I should have
Okay.
about like my vitamins and minerals. Um,
Right.
so
That's
yeah.
a very, it's an interesting point. You remind me how, I don't know, you may have seen me, I often speak against the paleo diet. And one reason is because one, there's like an infinite varieties, number of variations. There's so many different, and generally speaking, they tend to eat lean meats and lots of grains.
Mhm.
And this is like catastrophic.
Mhm.
The Paleolithic man did not eat that way, actually, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, right. So a lot of people, even with the great food in front of them, they're like throwing away the best parts. They're not eating enough fats. They're not eating the organ meats, etc.
And I mean, even grains, like I fell into the whole grain trap, but I didn't know how to
Ah,
properly prepare them. I was just,
right,
whole
right.
grain, whole grain brown rice or wild rice, and I would
Mm-hmm.
make it right out of the bag. So, um, you know,
Gotcha. So the
things like
small
that.
details, right? So there were a lot of the small details that had you on the wrong path, so to say.
Yeah, but I still, as much as I may have been malnourished, I don't think that was the biggest cause of my issue. I think it was the emotional pieces
Right,
that
right, yeah,
contributed the most.
right.
So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like, yeah, that makes sense to me too. I think that is underestimated, the impact of the emotions. And even in my limited experience, because I'm like a newcomer to the emotion code, but even I see it. And of course, and I really don't like to use myself as an example. My personal experience or even professional experience is irrelevant compared to the body of experience that we have on planet Earth right now, right? So, I mean, the stories out there are endless. But like again, even in my limited time, I've seen it, and you too. You're experiencing it also, which is great.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I hope like people that see this will be motivated to dip their toe into the emotion code, either on their own, just by getting the book, or by contacting a practitioner. It doesn't have to be me, right? So, but yeah, very cool, very cool. All right, so um did we touch upon everything. We got into the electric medicine, we got into the emotion code, we talked about the dietary stuff. There could be a lot of details. I'm sure we can get lost in on the dietary stuff. I mentioned about you not being able to do kefir and dairy. I mentioned that at the opening of this.
I haven't started kefir yet, but I have been introducing dairy and doing really well with it. So kefir is coming up.
Right,
And I'll,
cool,
yeah,
cool,
and I'll just start it in tiny little amounts at first and slowly build up and
cool.
see how I do. But I know eventually I will be drinking kefir.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. And it's nice, like on your story, again, you've done so much healing. You've improved. Like, yeah, I know you've mentioned before, your energy levels are up now. You're not bleeding, right? You're
Kind of eczema all over my face anymore. And
ah,
my body. Like, I mean, it was there was a lot going on. Yeah. And I was inflamed.
mm,
I don't think most people would have looked at me and said I was overweight, but I was overweight for me.
oh, okay.
I just, yeah, I feel so much better now.
Oh, that's so awesome. And yet you are still moving forward. You're still getting better, right? So dealing with, because food intolerances were another thing that you were trying to deal with, which can be a challenge for people. And you're slowly overcoming them too.
Mhm.
Right. So that's been good. I guess we could even give a shout out to the methods that you use. So the primary method that you used, oh, I don't know if it's primary. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't jump. But so what did you do to address food allergies other than just avoiding, like so staying away from the dairy until your body's ready? But other than that, you did some specific things, right?
Yeah,
Can you share that with us? Is that
sure. Yeah, I have a friend who is she's an ART practitioner. She
Mhm.
calls it allergy release technique. And she uses a bunch of different energy medicines to help heal people of allergies and many other
Mhm.
issues. Um, and so it's kind of a combination of bioresonance therapy and she uses like electrodermal testing and
Mhm. Good.
yeah, and then uh, just other things that I don't even really understand what she's doing. Just gonna let her do it. Um, yeah, so she's helped me bring a lot of my issues into balance.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, so that's another thing too, because I think it's the first time we mentioned the bioresonance here, and that's something I always like. So I think that's pretty cool. So I liked. It's nice to give a shout out to the ART,
Mhm.
um, since that's helped you. And again, another thing, kind of in that, energy medicine, energy healing. Because there are so many different methods and techniques, and there will continue to be new ones that people put together by, again, piecing together old and new, and because it's interesting. Like, for example, I can tell someone, drink milk kefir, your own homemade raw milk kefir, double fermented, blah blah blah, and a person might be like, I don't care. And somebody else can say the same exact thing, and the person will be like, oh my God, that's the answer, right? Because it could be the sound of the voice, or the way the information is presented, or the timing that it comes into your life, or whatever. And it's the same thing with all these different techniques for energy healing, or like diets, for example, right? There's always a new fad diet because people just love to grab onto a new label, what's ever hot and new. So in coaching, like for me, in my attempts to help people, it's trying to appeal to people, not exactly trying to sell myself, but right, because I really want to empower them, right? I want to empower people. I just want them to get the information. And for many people, I know it's the information coming from me is not, maybe it's just not going to work. I got to get it to come from someone else. So I do like giving shout outs to other people at times, or even like right. So I didn't want to promote my protocol, although I do think it's amazing as a foundation, right? I
I
still think, oh, thank you. Thank you. So, but like something like the emotion code is cool because there are practitioners all over the world, right? So again, they don't have to come to me to do it. You know, there are people everywhere, and it's just like with any doctor or et cetera, whatever. We got to find someone that we feel comfortable with.
Mhm.
And I feel privileged when someone like yourself feels comfortable working with me. So I appreciate that, and I'm grateful when you or anyone else chooses me to help them. It's nice to be part of a journey,
Mhm.
and yeah. So thank you for allowing me to be part of yours.
Oh,
And is there anything else?
yes, there is. I just
Okay,
I
yes.
want to shout out your Q&As.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because those, I mean, I show up to a lot of them, most of
You
them,
do. Thank you.
and
Yeah.
I don't always have a question. I just love learning from you, and like sometimes just literal jewels will fall out of your mouth, like the things that you
Oh,
say.
thank you.
Amazing and so easy to understand. And I also love it because it helps keep me accountable. And
Mm,
and it kind of, it's a nice little community. So I want to say thank you for offering those because they've been a huge help to me. And even just reminders, you know, sometimes I might slip out of something and be like, oh yeah, I should bring that back in. So they've been an awesome tool for me as well.
awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for that shout out. And of course, I would agree with you that I think these things are important. Like even having the group, like I think a lot of people misunderstand. I don't have the group as a business tool for me because it's actually not very useful or functional as a business tool for me. But it's a support tool for even people that are not my clients,
Mhm.
right? And the Q&A, of course, is an even more powerful support tool, I think, for the reasons that you mentioned, which that's pretty awesome. And yeah, and hopefully more people will jump into the Q&A or jump into the Vitagenics Facebook group if it doesn't get shut down by Facebook. But there are many groups, you know, on many platforms. So I'm in many different places. So we'll always be around to support people. Yeah, and thank you again, Kelly. And is there anything else we're missing? There probably is. I know you do so many wonderful things, you
Mhm.
know. So again, I know you've empowered yourself and you have empowered others. So again, thank you for sharing.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. Awesome. All right, so I guess we covered everything then.